Hey there, CJ Math students. Welcome to Notes 3.11 Part 1. Today we're going to work with what's called the percent equation. And the percent equation relates exactly to our ratios and proportions that we've been working with, because basically you're going to set up two proportions. I'm going to tell you three things that you know, and you're going to solve for the fourth thing. Now, the only problem is that sometimes this percent equation can be a little bit tricky because you have to know where to plug in stuff. For instance, if you hear the word is or of, you should know that the word is means it's a part of something, and of means it's a whole of something. And then if you hear the word percent or see the percent sign, it's percent of something. 100 will always be in the denominator of the second ratio. Why? Because 100 is basically a percent of something is per 100. Okay? That's literally what percent means. So let's try one out. So it says 45% of 3 is what? So first of all, I know I have a percent because it said 45%, so I'll put that right there, 45% of 3. Of is of a whole, so the whole is 3, and the part is, I don't know, is what? So that's something I don't know. So now if I write that over in proportions, I have x over 3 equals 45% over 100. So again, notice 100 will always be in the second denominator. The part is always on top, the whole is always on bottom, and the percent is always over 100. So what do we have here? All we have is a proportion, and we just need to solve for it. So we'll go ahead and multiply 100 times x equals 100x, and then 45 times 3 equals 135. So that's step one, right? Doing that cross multiplication. And now all we have to do is divide by 100. Both sides get divided by 100. These cancel out. So 100 divided by 100 is 1, and 1 times x is just x. So I'm left with x is equal to 135 divided by 100. And yes, you will be allowed to use calculators today. So that's 1.35. So let's figure out what this actually means. That means 45% of 3 is what? Basically, this is saying that 1.35 is 45% of 3. And think about that, right? What's half of 3? Well, that's 1.5. So 1.5 is 50% of 3. So it kind of makes sense that 1.35 could be 45% of 3, right? Let's try number 2. 400% of 35 is what? So what do they give us? They give us our percent, which is 400%. They give us our whole, right, the of 35. And they don't give us the part, right, is what? So I have x over 35 is equal to 400 over 100. Remember, 100 always stays exactly in the second denominator. So let's do some cross multiplication. We'll do 100 times x. That's 100x equals 35 times 40. 5 times 400. That's actually going to give us 14,000. And now the second step, if we look back over here to number 1, is just to divide both sides by 100. So dividing by 100, dividing by 100. These cancel off because they're 1, and 1 times x is simply just x. So x is equal to 14,000 divided by 100, which is 140. So let's ask ourselves again, what does that mean? It means 140 is 400% of 35. Think about that. 100% of 35 would be 35. So it makes sense that 140, which is a lot bigger than 35, multiple times bigger than 35, is way more than 100% of 35. In fact, it's 400% of 35. Okay? Let's move on to another type of problem, problem number 3. It says, what is 24% of 54? So notice again, they give you the percent, 24%. They give you the of, or the whole, 54. And they don't give you the part, right? So we have x over 54 equal to 24 over 100. Let's do our cross multiplication. Right? 100 times x is 100x is equal to 54 times 24 is 1,296. So again, the next step will be divide both sides by 100. When I do that, those cancel off because they're just 1. So x is equal to 1,296 divided by 100, which is 12.96. And you might be saying, wait a second, did they mess up a? Well, no, that says 1,296. So what they mean you to do here then is to round. So x is equal to about, remember squiggly equal sign means about 13, so D. So what does that mean? It means 13 is 24% of 54. And think about that, half of 54, if you take 54 and divide by 2, that's 27. So 50% of 54 would be 27. So it makes sense that 13 being a lot smaller than half of 54 is about 24% of 54. All right, I'm going to have you do number 4 in Edpuzzle. That's the end of part 1.